Hey, it's Chris. What are we doing? News, upcoming crowdfunding, everything you need to know from this past week and what's upcoming next week on tabletop scene. Where are we starting? Well, we're starting with the news, like usual. The biggest stuff. We'll start with the Mea Culpa. DC United, right? I said last week, DC United's going to come soon. And then the next day, CMON was like, we're dropping it in July, right? Smacked me across the face. Sorry about that. That's my luck. But yeah, God of War is going to be coming sooner now. God of War is going to be the next one up. Okay, God of War before the end of the month. CMON, God of War. Show me what you got. 1 to 2 players, though. 1 to 2 players. I don't know. I kind of wish it wasn't miniature driven. I kind of like what Soulless did from Lunar Oak Studios, going with the just heavy card driven gameplay aspects when I was expecting miniatures, right? A little bit of good bait and switch there. You know how it is. The big news, news-ish, Shadowborne games, makers of Oathsworn, publishers of Oathsworn, put out trailer for their next one, the Riven Veil, Avalon, the Riven Veil, that is. So we'll just pull it up for the sake of doing it, and we'll kind of just break it down here in a minute. Circular board, multiplayer, as you would expect. Now, this is going to be miniature driven because as we scoot along here, you're going to see it looks like you've sort of got the Weirdwood Manor style of several different rings you're going to be maneuvering as well as you go along. You can kind of see that the replaceable card driven areas, flip them over, having unique asymmetric, I'm assuming, actions, events, or dynamics that are going to go along with it. So here's the miniature part of things that is intriguing, right? Looks like you're going to have different types of units, at least 3 there that you can tell. Is that going to be enough? What are you going to be seeing from that aspect of things? How asymmetric is it going to be? And when you say you're going to be defending it, is this, again, I'm not very familiar, going to have a cooperative element of things? Is this going to have just a you fight versus the game? You fight player versus player, player versus environment? I love the card-driven aspect of things. Getting the artifacts, I'm not really sure, right? Let's pause this for a second. Whenever players tie for the initiative, you may choose winner order in which tied players perform their actions. So you've got some iconography up above here. You've got some iconography down here below. You can see you've got castle, iconography on the board here in several different places. One right behind my head, which is a little harder to see, but then the 2 up here and the one on the far left side of the screen as well. So what's that actually going to entail? I mean, I don't know. Bond mythic beasts. Okay, that's kind of cool. I'm assuming that's going to be sort of your stretch goal-esque sort of vibe. And again, it's area control. So you're going to be heavy battling. But what? Heavy battling what? So looks cool, very aesthetically pleasing. And, well, we'll see what the art actually ends up being like, right? Whole separate video there, a little discussion over on Reddit from this past week of AI art versus no AI art. Oh yeah, your boy's going to weigh in on that one. I guarantee we'll have some hot takes and some interesting conversations. Nothing in the last 20 seconds of this video. So how do you feel about that, right? Does that make you any more or any less appealed? I mean, like I said in my video from this past week, you didn't watch it, right? The marketing one. Game trailers, right? The problem with that is, as much as you can analyze that, you also don't get a whole lot out of it, right? It's not like a video game trailer even where you're actually seeing mechanics and you can break it down screenshot by screenshot, or a movie trailer where they throw in a bunch of random clips and you sort of pause it and see. That offers you very little to nothing of actual gameplay value in that sense. And so it's cool, but as someone just reached out to me and told me, you know who you are, thank you, how much they spent on Launch Boom, which was, to be frank, a little bit staggering, the amount of money that was spent on that. I also look at things like this. Again, spend your money how you will, but how much money was spent making that trailer? Hopefully Shadowborne just has someone in-house that can just do it on the cheap, right? And that's not someone you paid separately. Because again, say what you will, Level 99 Games did it earlier this year with the Bullet campaign. They said, or end of last year, I think. Time is all a blur at this point for me. That we're not going to market this. We're going to save thousands of dollars and not pay the hundreds of dollars for a couple paid previews on larger channels, or a couple thousands of dollars, because some of the bigger ones are probably charging in that line of things. I would not be surprised. I don't actually know, to be frank, what people charge, but I can imagine what I would charge for a paid preview. And then if you had someone that was 5 or 10 times my size, I can also imagine what they would charge. So That's where I'm extrapolating and purely making stuff up as we go along, right? Maybe they're charging less than I think, but that's a lot of money to spend if you're a small publisher. And I look at this just like I sort of do with paid previews. Again, not trying to get myself in trouble here. Because again, if somebody will pay you to make something like that, awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm glad you have a job at doing that. At the same time, if you're a small company with a small budget, is that really where your money is best spent? I don't know. I can only speak again as this small, tiny guy with a YouTube channel on the consumer side of things, saying that right there, that's not going to change my mind in backing or not, right? I don't think that's going to entice the people that are interested in backing to back it, like more incentivized to do that. And I don't think the people that aren't interested are going to be all of a sudden like, a render of 3D miniatures with a map on the board is now all of a sudden changed my mind on crowdfunding, right? So I guess my question ultimately boils down is, who's the target audience for something like that? I don't know. Again, it's cool to look at. It's cool to have, but is the return on investment good from that aspect? Again, I would have to wager because, again, a lot of smart business people are doing smart business things and I'm not smart business. So I have to imagine that your return of interest must be pretty good on stuff like that. But I don't know the actual data. I don't know the actual numbers. I'm always interested to see, because that's also something that's hard to track. Like the Facebook groups that were doing it for a while were trying to say like, well, X number of people viewed this ad that we put out there that wasn't actually an ad. Or they said it wasn't actually an ad when it actually was. That's where I'm going with that. That's why I got kicked out of the Facebook group for calling that out. But then also so many people clicked it. But how many clicks turn into actual pledges? And I've had 1 or 2 companies, actually, no, I take that back. I've probably had somewhere between 3 and 6 companies that have said, hey, would you put this referral link into your video when you talk about our stuff? I don't know how well that's tracked. I don't know how well that turnover is. Again, I'm not tech savvy, but I just wonder, like, do some of those bigger get good clickage? I mean, I've heard the data a little bit on the Board Game Geek statistics that have said, like, they get so much clickage here, or, you have 10% of the people that follow your campaign actually back it. So, that number wise, but apart from that, I don't really know if there's any wide industry knowledge about that out there that's available. And maybe that's what Launch Boom talks about. But again, like, how do you accurately measure that? It's not like a scientific thing. You're going to have significant bias affecting it either way. So anyway, I'm going to get myself in trouble. And so I'm talking about this more than I planned on it already. So that's all we'll get into from that one. I've already soliloquied and soapboxed enough from that aspect. So we'll go on to the next news. Resafa, a new Vladimir Suchy game. It's buying spices and having thirsty camels that you're quenching. 3rd century AD, Middle East, modern day Syria-esque location. And you have a fortified desert outpost. And you're going to be very much along an important caravan route. And your merchants buying, selling along the cities in that region. And it's very much dependent on the large cisterns to collect water to make it habitable. So you're going to be building tanks, canals, workshops, helping the businesses grow. Network, route building, pick up and deliver, tile placement, 6 round base, 3 actions, 18 actions total. So Euro yourself at your own heart's content. Not any more information though, just really announced and just really being put out there. So we'll see what comes of that. The other more interesting note, and I always feel a little bit weird about this one too, is the American Tabletop Awards. So basically, I think some people that you'd recognize from bigger name channels and such, media content folks, banded together, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years ago or so, and created their American Tabletop Awards. And so they put their stuff out this year, and they have their various categories very similar to the Spiel stuff, your early gamers, casual gamers, and they actually stratify it into 2 more levels here instead of just 1, the strategy games and the complex games. 3 of these 4 games you'll recognize instantly and kind of understand why they're there where they were. But the other one, the early gamers, Blob Party, I have no idea. It's from WizKids, right? And so I'm not going to talk about those that much because that is definitely, probably not most of you's interest. I mean, it's a very interesting test for me personally. The other one was Chicken, which I was aware of, a push your luck sort of slap style game. and Deep Dive from, I believe, is that AEG's? And then Turbo Kids and Maple Valley. Although Maple Valley, that seems way too heavy for the early gamers. Maple Valley is not an early gamer thing. I mean, they have the criteria laid out on their website of how they actually, select stuff. And they put out a good, like, we're going to try not to be biased. We're trying not to sort of, have anybody that's associated with any of these games out there. So, I mean, they're trying to be rigorous on that side of things. And the thing I like it a little bit better than, say, like Mensa, is like Mensa, you actually have to like pay to get your game submitted on their list of nominations. So it's nothing like that either, which is good from that aspect. The winner of the second level of things, the casual games, was Sea Salt and Paper. Sort of your Marvel Snap-esque in a board game, and the expansion just came out. The other recommended ones, Next Station Tokyo, again, very similar nomination there, and Dofromantic, the board game. And then the other ones, I believe, from the nominations previously in the last couple of years, again, to give you sort of a style of things, Fit to Print, My Island, and Turing Machine. So games you'd recognize across the board. Going the next level up, strategy. The winner was, well, Thunder Road Vendetta. The recommended ones were Daybreak and Fox Experiment, and the nominated ones otherwise, if I'm reading these websites correctly, right, Forest Shuffle and Kinfire Chronicles Nightfall. Which, again, most of those games you saw on people's top 10 list, right? Like, this is really the crux of my side of things, where you're seeing a lot of those fall, and you'll see a very similar overlap here with the complex games, deeply strategic, appealing to experienced players, often employing many game mechanisms, and lean towards longer play times. White Castle won. Nucleum, Earth were the recommended. Nominated Dune Imperium Uprising and Motor City. Like, which one of these? Like, that is let's talk about that for a second, right? White Castle, by far and away the unexpected lighter style of the complex games. Nucleum, the opposite end of the heavy Euros. Earth, heavy tableau, building combo mechanisms. Dune Imperium Uprising, well, that's worker placement and deck building. And then Motor City's a rolling right. So that's a wide casting net as a whole. And the last year's winner was Carnegie. So Carnegie and Frosthaven with My Father's Work as the recommended one. So, I mean, like, it's different. It's definitely going for a different vibe. It's definitely going out there, but I don't know. I don't know how I feel about awards. Like, I wish I could have, like, my own little award, like, logo on things. I don't know. I kind of blessing curse of that, right? Because I feel like a lot of times nowadays, I just got a review copy, for example. A review copy of a brand new released game, right? It already has a review copy symbol on it from somebody that approved the game. And I looked at this and I said, wow, right? That's impressive that there's already that on there at the time of retail release. At the same time, I was kind of like, I'm just a little cynical when it comes to these. And I think it helps with brand recognition and marketing. But it helps too, I guess, sell things. So, I don't know. I have mixed opinions on it. I don't even know what my symbol would be, right? Like, I kind of would want something weird, like Shut Up and Sit Down in their pair. Like, what would Liege's thing be? Would it be a golden kraken? Remember that? Anyway, if you're a long-time subscriber, you remember, or I used to, anyway, Krakens, space Krakens, Krakens in space. It's a long-standing joke that I haven't referred to in probably a year plus. So that's the other interesting tidbit of news. And the last thing that I will talk about very, very briefly here, I'm going to dedicate a whole separate video to this, just, because it's a topic that will be of interest. AI art. There was some accusation / pondering / realization that the latest update from Dragon Eclipse and Awakened Realms was heavily using some AI art, and it wasn't photoshopped very well, was apparently the allegation over on Reddit. And that just brings up the conundrum of how do you feel about AI art, right? I'm sure that's not a divisive topic whatsoever. Not whatsoever. Reddit wasn't divisive about it whatsoever. Reddit was completely even-keeled, having level-headed debates and conversation, and, completely appropriate, right? And nice to each other, too. Yeah, right? Right! So, I don't know. It's an interesting topic. Not black and white at all, as people make it out to be. At the same time, I think there are some big disclaimers, asterisks, and contextualizations that have to happen if you're using it or if you are against it altogether, right? I think it's a very nuanced argument, and that's why it gets a whole separate video just from that aspect of things. So I am going to leave it in that before I stick my foot in my mouth or upset the apple cart a little bit too much. So we'll just go straight over to the upcoming crowdfunding games. What's actually coming out this upcoming week? First up, well, One Hit Heroes. You saw my video from like a week and a half ago. Well, I think this is a fantastic game. I worry a little bit about the long-standing replayability. Designers have already reached out to me and said, you know what, we saw your video and, you know, thanks for the advice. And thanks for the things to look at, because again, at the bottom of that, it said season 1. So a combination of like a little bit of Aeon's End Marvel United-esque vibe with this clever comboing card play deck building system that as you beat bosses, you draft cards into your deck to make it a little bit further. But if any of your team of heroes takes 1 hit, you lose. And it's just wear down the bosses, slight Aeon's End mechanism of the setup and the difficulty, and the Marvel United style of things where it takes very simple rule sets and makes it clever, unique, in a slightly different twist. So that one is the first one to watch. Now, the 2 biggest games launching this week, in my opinion, just now announced, you know, again, typical CMON here, 4 days before the campaign, they're like, hey, God of War! We're launching it on the 16th. So 1 to 2 players, God of War, card-driven with miniatures, scenario-based system. I don't have a freaking clue, folks. Right? This is more in the lines of something I would have expected to see from Chip Theory, only like swap the chips with the miniatures and then kind of, you know, mix it up and see what you get out of that grab bag. There's literally no information over on the GameFound page. Coincidentally enough, I actually clicked over to it while filming this too, and you know, they have a link to the Genesis Clan Wars game from CMON too, so they're really hitting all of those hard as well, which is weird because the Genesis campaign is also going to be Q2, so that's going to be launching, you know, shortly after this one, I guess. Anyway, side tangent there. We know nothing about God of War. Literally not even any videos on the Board Game Geek page. So embargoed? No, just kidding. The only videos that have been out there lately for any of the CMON campaigns have been a Board Game Co. preview, as well as like a Dice Tower live playthrough at some point. So I would expect that to be the exact same situation that you're going to find yourself in with this one. At least, though, again, giving kudos, at least they're a rule book on day 1 for almost all of them, though. Unlike some of the other GameFound situations. Again, right? Call it out as I see it. So then we get the one I already talked about twice this month as well. Mindbug! Battlefruit Kingdom. It's a great freaking game, folks. I talked about it in my review. This was not a game, you know, as a 2-player dueler lover style of things, right? That sentence made sense. You'll go with it. I was not really enamored with this game the first couple of times I played it. Truth be told. It's really grown on me, though. It's like a Radlands, only easier to get played. I stand by that statement. It's like a Summoner Wars, only easier to get played. By the way, review coming out shortly in the near future this month of Summoner Wars 2, the app. Whoo, doggy. Anyway, speaking of that, like, which apps do you actually like to use? That one, playing some Star Wars Unlimited, playing some Root. Those are my go-tos. And I used to have Yellow and Yangtze. I don't know if I have that one anymore. Did I delete that? Anyway, side tangent. Battlefruit Kingdoms. 2 standalone expansions, some extras. You know, I'm excited to see what else they can do. I only got one of the 2 decks, and I just like it. It's really straightforward, folks. You know, there was this Reddit thread going on at the time, right prior to me filming this, and it was like, what 3 games are hitting your table the most, right? And I said abstracts, and I said that style of things because you just, you know, some nights don't want to learn/relearn rules for games. And so that is another game that fits that bill completely. Bring that to date night. Boom, shakalaka, out in the restaurant. Yeah, I've been there, done that. Wife doesn't have any problem with it either, actually. She usually asks if we're going to bring something along because it's more of a let's get out of the house and stay out of the house until the kids are in sleep, right? That sort of thing. Anyway, those are the big 2. What else? The other big one, I mean, again, I'm curious to see what this will do because I saw a lot of it selling secondary on the market for high prices was the reprint of Castles of Burgundy, the special edition over on GameFound from Awakened Realms. So, I mean, I got my copy. I mean, I think Castles of Burgundy is an all-time classic for a reason. But I also think that having all of it in such a massive box, it also makes it unwieldy. And that's my biggest problem with it as a whole. Like, I wish the box was like just half the size or just 2 separate boxes. Not even like the miniatures or the acrylics thrown in there, right? It's just unwieldy for what it is. The playmat is probably one of the best things I've ever seen. for utilization. I love it. And the acrylic tiles make it fancy and fun. But are you willing to pay such a premium for an all-time great game? Because it has to be an all-time great game for you. Again, deluxifications don't change the gameplay. Deluxifications make it better table presence to impress your friends. But if that's not for you, go buy the 10th anniversary edition with a couple mini expansions to go along with it all in one, and you'll be just as good off too. So price point, is the price point going to change? Now with some of the Awakened Realms reprints, we haven't really seen the price point change a whole lot. So I would be surprised if that was drastically different. But you know what? You missed it the first time around, and it's got enough traction and enough review and enough view out there that you know what you're getting out from either aspect. So, well-informed buying if you're going for it from that side of things at this point. Then we also have Grail Games coming out with Snowcrest, conquering magical beasts, discovering ancient knowledge, and bringing peace to your village. Hand management, multi-use, variable setup with a square grid. So you are having a village and a monastery that you have a unique faction of laborers and workers to utilize, building structures and presenting offerings, discovering secrets from a bygone age to overcome the guardians. The aesthetic is cool. I like it. The grid system that the card-based situation appears to be using seems to be interesting. I have no idea what the gameplay is looking like. There's one video right now on Board Game Geek that you can check out as a preview video. But I'd like to see the rulebook on this one as well, because again, beautiful aesthetic has not treated me as well as I would like with a couple recent games this year, of Veil of Eternity and Woodland Wizards. So I'd like to see a little bit more of what it's going to offer to the table before I can really kind of say where my thoughts are at this point. Then, I mentioned it previously, and I'll have a video out probably at the beginning of the week as well. Table Golf Association, the Meeple Beach expansion. I have a copy sitting right behind the camera there, filmed already, and need to get finished up at this point. But it's it's the penultimate golf game. I don't know why I said penultimate. It kind of is the ultimate golf game. Sort of your ball bearing-esque, flick across dexterity based games. I covered the first one, and this one is a slight upgrade. It's a 2.0 version, and if you're looking for it, it's probably one of the few deluxifications, contrary to what I literally just said in this video, that does make a difference on the gameplay, because they put out a cardboard version as their second or third crowdfunding campaign. And the wooden tiles, again, like tile wise, when you have stuff like this, you can't have cardboard edges. That was my big problem with the original Catacombs third edition, that the cardboard board actually started to get in the way of flicking those discs. And so when they went to playmats, I was like, right? And so that's what this is doing with the wood, is that there's no lift. So you don't have to worry about your golf shots, because these things just float across it, right? The most delicate flicking game I've ever played. So that's going to be launching as well. That being said, that is the upcoming week. So let's go over to the hotness. What has been new trending out there in terms of the Board Game Geek clickage, right? First up is Burning Banners. Burning Banners? Compass Games? It's a war game. It's a war game, folks. You're playing as it says, 2 to 6 player, 29 scenarios, 2 kingdoms, 1 map, or entire 12-year war with 6 kingdoms over 4 maps, and you're wargaming it up, folks. Fantasy wargaming. So I have no clue. There's very little content. It's apparently getting a ton of clicks, though, because that's at the top of the hotness at the time of me filming this. So take that for what you will, and if you're a war gamer, give it a look-see. All right? So I have no idea. Check it out. Wargaming, not my specialty. Only has like 36 reviews on Board Game Geek right now, so it's getting something. And the other one that was more recently announced that came out of nowhere as well, another one that's coming up really hard and hot on the hotness, is Harmonies. You may have heard something similar, right? Creating your own landscape and habitats to welcome animals. We've seen that a few times already, right? The aesthetic is awesome, and it just got uploaded, just got released. And again, 93 ratings on Board Game Geek at the time of me filming this, and you're using colored tokens to create habitats for animals and incorporate those habitats into the landscapes. So, tile laying, pattern building, animal-based mechanistic approach. Sort of gives you the aesthetically version of, Neotopia meets Ark Nova, if you will, if you're familiar with both those games. I have no idea. People are trying to compare it to other games like Dreamscape or even Reef in the comment section. I have no clue. I came across my radar on one of my subscriptions on Board Game Geek as well for new games being released in 2024. So I was going to talk about it anyway, because it was by far and away the most beautiful game, at least aesthetically speaking, I've seen recently. so we'll mention it. Rebirth, the Kinesia Layer game, is coming from Mighty Boards, and that's going to be coming to May and crowdfunding, so we'll see a little bit more detail from them soon. Tiny Epic Game of Thrones, which we covered yesterday on the crowdfunding roundup, which, again, like, I sort of have mixed feelings on, right? Like, $50, it's kind of, your mileage may vary. It hasn't been as incentivized as very much the early Tiny Epics were to get it on crowdfunding from an exclusivity-wise. And, you know, some of them have been hits and some of them haven't been as strong overall, because trying to make a big game into a tiny package sometimes works, and sometimes you're just not able to make it quite work the way you want to. So my only other fear with it is, right, it's doing solo, competitive, and cooperative. And often games that do all of those, they aren't all, you know, like here. There's one that sort of tends to be slightly better than the other. And if it's the mode that you really want, if it's the mode that you really love, that's fantastic. If it's not the mode you really are most excited by, or you don't really want to have to buy an expansion to get a mode like the cooperative, how do you feel about that? So that'd be my big dilemma. I mean, it's not like the price point is the issue, right? $50 is the gameplay all in currently. So it's not a big deal from that comparatively, but I mean, are you willing to take a shot on it? Or are you willing to buy someone's pledge, you know, a year from now for less than that, potentially, if it holds out? So that's just my thought process. A few of these others, I think, no pun included, did their top 10 board games of all time. And so I think mentioned on that was Dune War of Arrakis and Sidereal Confluence. And so those are trending right now. Agemonia is still lurking at the bottom of the hotness as the latest big box narrative campaign scenario-based system miniature game out there, right? Like, how many times can you apply those, like, set of, like, 5 words to a game recently in the last 2 or 3 years? It's a lot. And that seems to be most of the trending hotness right now. The rest we've kind of covered recently. Mythwind with their current ongoing campaign, the Eternaut, which I covered yesterday in the crowdfunding roundup, and then a few others that are delivering, like Gloomhaven Buttons and Bugs. The upcoming Nature from Northstar, which just released more information as well about the modules and a little bit more of the system. And, well, that's kind of about it. So, hotness, upcoming, all in one. What do you think? Kind of a little bit of a slower week overall, but again, some very interesting topics brought up by trailers, previews, and, well, you know, AI art. How about them apples? I got nothing else. This is a shorter video than usual on the news roundup this week, and I'm happy for it. So I will hopefully having my coffee page out soon. But if you want to support me in the meantime, I have a Patreon link down below. And you know what? They'll be getting an update, I think, in this next coming couple days, letting them know as well what's upcoming and what I have in store for you if you're interested. That's all I got. Have a great freaking fantastic weekend. I got stuff to film and things to play. I'm doing well on Star Wars Unlimited, though. If you look at the outtakes at the end of this video, you'll see that in the outtakes, I just called it Star Wars United. I'm really enjoying it, though. Side note here at the end of the video, would you like to see me do another Star Wars Unlimited unboxing? I know I've said this, I don't buy stuff to sell stuff, but I picked up some booster boxes when they were still less expensive, because now, like, the prices have gotten jacked up, which again brings up a whole nother debate, right? Of booster boxes being sold on the secondary market for jacked up prices. The MSRP is $120 for these booster boxes. And some friendly local game stores that were out all of a sudden found more stock, and now they're selling them for upwards between like $150 and $200. So as a person who bought it for less than that, should I just, like, I'm tempted. I'm not really serious because I just want to open them myself and have a collection so I can build a couple more decks in person. But, you know, like, if I could sell each of those booster boxes for $200 and I bought them for less than the MSRP, like, that's tempting, right? Truth be told. I like I said before, like, I didn't do it for that reason whatsoever, but gosh darn, if that's not tempting right now, right? I'd be lying to you, right? So, I don't know. That's where my head goes. But again, I kind of want to just be able to play. So I'm really enjoying it. Truth be told, folks, I'm really enjoying it. So FFG, call me. Hey, help you guys tweet out at FFG. You know, hit them up in the comment section. At them in the comment section. I'll at them too, and we'll see if we can get a response. Because it's fun. Help me go viral to them. Anyway, that's all I got. Little end rant there. But no, I'm probably just going to keep them and open them this weekend. We'll see. Whether or not I film it is going to be really the issue, because it's kind of a long video to do. And then you end up with these huge piles of cards on the table, and I want to provide stuff that's interesting. And if it's interesting for you guys and you want to do it along with me, I'm happy to. If you also say, nope, Chris, I'm good with this. Nope, I'm okay too. Because I've got another video or two lined up for it regardless. So I'm serious. I'm serious about that. I'm continuing to cover it. They're fun to do. Have a great day. See you around. Stoatboxed. This is a shorter video than usual on the rude. I'm doing well on Star Wars United though. I'm doing well.